Well, hello there. Boy, do I have some goodies to share with you today. It's raining outside, but we're not going to let it stop us because apparently this is important to get out ASAP. So, anyway, today we will explore the deeply disturbing question of what makes a person, commit a horrific murder and go to great lengths even to cover it up, often under, I'd say, the delusion, that they are smarter even than the cops. We're going to examine the cases of Jennifer Pan and Angela Simpson. Two cases that have always, intrigued me. I love to share with you, and you'll see why. So, these two individuals whose actions, spokenly or no, more shockingly, illustrate this phenomenon, right? Um, Through these case studies, we will uncover the motivations of the psychological factors and the impact of personal, circumstances. Um, that led anyway, these women to commit the crime. So before diving into, specific cases though, it's essential to understand um, the psychological makeup of someone who would commit, a brutal crime, because psychologists have identified even several factors that contribute, to the decision of murder. Number one would be psychopathy, and antisocial behavior too. Many killers, exhibit signs of psychopathy, lack of empathy, manipulation, and absence of guilt or remorse. However, not all individuals have committed, murder are psychopaths. Excuse me. Some people may have just distorted values that make them see others as, I'd say, expendable, even deserving of harm. Number two would be circumstances, stress and family dynamics, the impact of family conflict, the pressure of society and personal struggles cannot be underestimated. In some cases, the desire to escape from unbearable emotional or financial strain can fuel the desire to commit murder. Number three is a sense of power and control, because for some individuals, the act of taking someone's life can create an illusion of power and control over their own life, especially when they feel powerless. In other aspects, number four would be denial of accountability. Do you know anyone like that? Criminals, specifically, who go to great lengths to cover up their actions, um, often operate, under the delusion, anyway, that they are smarter, than the law enforcement, leading them to believe they can work, magic or powers, I guess. Um, there was another one I wanted to share that was even attended, instead. It's not right. I'm gonna just edit because I don't know why I don't have this note I wanted to read to you. Where is it? Anyway, let's move on. I forgot that there was another point. It'll come back to me, especially if it's important, right? Let me grab a sip of water. All right. So, case number one, Jennifer Pan. a young woman who grew up in a strict, high achieving household in Ontario, Canada. Her parents, especially her father, was incredibly controlling and had high expectations. She began, first by leading a double life, engaging in a secret relationship with the boyfriend who was already known for and previously even arrested for dealing drugs. Also, lying about her school performance, going on as far as creating and printing out report cards and achievements, just printing out documents that she made up, claiming it to have gotten them from even a university, when in fact she had not even gone at all. So instead, she was running around town engaging in activities her parents would not approve of. Now, the crime in 2010, when Jennifer Pan orchestrated the murder plot of both her parents, Bick and Han Pan, leading to the death of her mother and seriously injuring her father. She carefully planned the crime with her boyfriend and two of his associates to carry it out. The attack involved her parents being uh, shot during what they created was like a home invasion, right? So Jennifer Pan, reasoning behind the murder was rooted in frustration. She wanted to escape her parents' control and the pressure, that they placed upon her to be perfect. By killing her parents, Jennifer believed she could hesitate. No, I'm sorry. She could liberate herself from her oppressive family dynamics, and yet even be given her inheritance by force and much sooner than intended. Now, understand though that Jennifer's cover up involved meticulous staging the crime scene, even to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. She went as far as to fake being a victim of the crime because she staged her parents, then tied herself to the top of the banister with her cell phone, and then dialed 911. So, however, her lies unraveled after an extensive investigation, leading to her receiving life in prison. So, the evidence already painted or pointed, I'd say actually, to Jennifer's involvement. Also, after reviewing her conversations with her co conspirators later. But she did not expect her father to not only survive, but to even name her specifically and testify against her at her trial. Jennifer's case is a clear example of someone who believed that by eliminating the source of her struggles, which was really just her strict parents, that she could gain control over her life and even her lies. She attempted to outsmart, law enforcement by fabricating an elaborate cover up, demonstrating, a complete disregard for the consequences, of her actions. Case number two is Angela Simpson. So, a woman from Phoenix, Arizona, had a troubled past marked by criminal behavior, substance abuse, and a history of violence, despite even having young children herself. In fact, the complete disregard for even being a mother to them hurts my heart. However, her target, Terry Neely, was a disabled man whom she considered to be someone unworthy of life. She claimed that he was a snitch, you know, took the whole snitches get stitches even to another level. A whole nother level. Let me tell you how very sinister her actions were. She lured Terry Neely, a man who had physical disabilities and used a wheelchair, right up out of his chair and helped him up the stairs and into an empty apartment, promising both sex and drugs. Once there, she brutally tortured him and eventually killing him in cold blood. In fact, The detectives called the murder of Terry Neely one of the worst crimes they had ever seen. She took great uh, lengths in having him watch her in a mirror, even pulling out his teeth before he died to make sure it was more difficult for the police to identify him. She continued to beat, stab him even over 30 times, maybe even 50 times, um, before he succumbed, to the brutality and died. She removed, though, and cut up, killing because she felt that snitches didn't deserve life. And she, on interview, even said, I had no remorse about killing my victim. Now, see, to me, right there speaks pure evil. What part of this case do you find particularly disturbing? The murder, or the great lengths she went to try and cover up the crime, or her complete lack of remorse or even fear of the law? She believed herself to be invincible and outsmarted law enforcement by making it seem like her actions, even not as a tragic mistake, but as a triumph. When asked about, even after convicted, for the kidnapping and murder, receiving life in prison, her sentence, um, Angela Simpson's overconfidence, anyway, and her ability to evade capture and her sheer lack of empathy were key factors in the way she handled the aftermath of the murder. Both of these cases, though, are a stark example of someone who feels detached from moral and societal, constraints. The need to demonstrate power, control, and superiority over their victim and over even law enforcement was integral part to her actions. The delusion that she could outsmart the police and get away with the crime reflects the narcissistic traits, I'd say, that can be seen in certain criminals. Okay, so let's look at common themes. Both cases, highlight several psychological and behavioral patterns that are common in individuals who commit such horrific acts. Number one is the desire for control, right? Both Jennifer and Angela acted in ways that allowed them to feel a sense of power over their victims and their lives. Jennifer wanted to escape the suffocating pressure from her family to get an education. While Angela saw herself as above the law, number two would be the distorted perception of reality. Both women justify their actions by rationalization, that the victims deserved to die. Jennifer, for instance, believed her parents even their worth, Um, hold on, let me take another sip. Water. Because I want to be clear. I'm speaking a little bit of dry mouth because I had coffee. Anyway, forgive me. So they see themselves, though, as playing a game, both these girls, but unfortunately, the consequences of such delusions are always severe. So in conclusion, the cases of Jennifer Pan and Angela Simpson serve as chilling reminders of the complexities even of human behavior and the darker side of the human psyche. While each case is unique, they share common themes: a need for control, narcissism, right? Disconnected from reality, and even underestimation of the consequences. Understanding these psychological elements can help us gain insight into why someone, might be driven to commit such horrific acts, right? So, and the lengths they're willing to even go to hide, their involvement. Key takeaways, are both the notion that someone can control every detail of a murder and its cover up is flawed, actually. Investigators, today have an array of forensic and technological tools, from digital footprints to DNA evidence, that can expose even the most carefully executed plans. For example, Jennifer believed that the investigation would focus solely on the robbery, right? Shows a misunderstanding of how detectives approach cases. Now, here are the key takeaways I want to leave you with, right? Number one, forensic advancements. Because while a perpetrator may initially believe they have covered all their tracks, technological advancements have made it virtually impossible to escape a thorough investigation. Surveillance footage, right, seems to be everywhere today, but phone records and social media posts are all ways the criminals, unknowingly incriminate themselves. Number two would be the small details, because those unravel the truth. In both cases, even small inconsistencies in their stories told by the perpetrators led investigators to uncover the truth. For example, Jennifer's elaborate plan to stage the crime scene overlooked a critical detail: the lack of forced entry, for instance, which immediately raised, I'm sure, a few red flags. Um, Another note I wanted to share. Because it grew suspicion, that someone inside the house was involved. So, forgive me. Number three would be human behavior. It doesn't lie, does it? Over time, lies unravel because humans have a tendency to give themselves away, either through their actions, emotions, or even statements. You see, Jennifer and Angela, like many other criminals that are now behind bars for life, are as well believed they could escape prosecution. But modern forensic science and investigation techniques made their plans ultimately fail. So, for example, case number one, Jennifer's pans the crime scene, despite her best efforts, wasn't as convincing as she hoped. Forensic investigators found discrepancy in the way the crime was staged, particularly in how her parents were positioned after being shot. Furthermore, she didn't take into account that the police were able to track Jennifer's involvement through cell phone records. Because and security footage. That's right, because the neighbor had a camera set up. So, also witnessed testimonies, that undermined her story. In Angela's case, in fact, she bragged just after to anyone that would listen and put in great detail to torture and kill Terry, but not nearly enough effort in concealing the evidence. Both the fire she started in the trash can and Terry's wheelchair sitting out in open public, empty without Terry in it or nearby it, yet parked near also the place he resided. You see, behind the church, in the parking lot, was where the trash can sat, engulfed in flames. And next door was the residential facility where Terry lived. Did she not think anyone would notice? This act alone led police directly to her. Let's just say the fire did not hide Terry's fingerprints, nor did it hide Angela's, showing how even the smallest misstep can reveal the truth. Then finally, we come to the fallacy of evading justice. I find it fascinating, and I bet you do too, on how many criminals underestimate how well the police are able to track down evidence, even when evidence is harder to find. um, Investigations today are not only about physical evidence, but also involve digital footprints, text messages, social media, right? GPS data now they use too, and even something as simple as a cell phone pinging can tie a suspect to the crime, right? Because they check the towers. Modern investigation rarely rely on gut feeling or assumptions, right? They use sophisticated techniques, even like forensic analysis, pattern recreation, and recognition, digital evidence, to piece together a complete picture of the crime. Those who try to evade justice often fail. In what they're doing because they overlook the wide array of tools at the police or law enforcement they have at their disposal, right? So the last point I have to make is to consider the long-term consequences that await those who commit such horrific acts. Not only do they face a potential lifetime in prison, but the psychological toll of carrying out and covering up a murder can be devastating, right? For many perpetrators, the realization that they cannot escape their crime and the guilt that follows is crippling. Those that do, feel bad, so severely bad, afterwards. Jennifer Pan, though, for example, while facing a lengthy prison sentence, also has to face the long term consequences of her actions, including, being morally reprehensible, but also bound to fail in the face of modern investigation techniques. So the idea that one can outsmart the police, though, hide evidence, and get away with murder, even, is a dangerous myth. The lesson here is clear. Even the most carefully planned crimes will eventually be uncovered. No one is above the law, right? And the consequences of trying to deceive law enforcement will only lead to greater tragedy. So, if you are considering going down that path, remember this: justice has a way of finding you, right? All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you soon. Bye.